Hello and welcome to our top 10 best rare weapons in Starbound. In this video we'll see 10 ranged and melee weapons that are tricky to find, can't be crafted, and most importantly look cool as balls. They have the official balls stamp of approval. Wait, that sounds wrong. And in case you were wondering, I'm currently wielding the candy cane, which is very funny, and it is rare because it's only available without cheating when it's Christmas in the real world. But it's really just a rather boring whacking sword when it comes right down to it, so it doesn't quite make the top 10. Here are the ones that do. Number 10. Water Sword. Just making the top 10, here's a rare knobbly looking weapon that works as a regular broadsword, but also has a wall of 5 bubbles that fly out to deal extra damage. Perfect when you want to keep other enemies at bay whilst you're busy chopping up the one right in front of you. Just don't expect the bubbles to be very precise, they shoot out at uncontrolled random angles. Number 9. Globe Launcher. The Globe Launcher's stats are procedurally generated and it has several ammo variants. For example, this pink one fires out gravity-affected shots that roll along the ground. Very useful. But I also have other coloured ones that hang in the air and explode after a while. They vary in stats quite a bit. The red one fires faster but does less damage per shot, for instance. The green one goes for miles. The only slight problem is that the latest update may have taken the weapons out, so let us know in the comments if you do find one. Oh, and this orange one is bloody weird. Number 8. Giant Worm. The best of the boomerang style weapons introduced in the combat update, and its rarity is legendary. It's also unlike the other boomerangs, worming and twisting its way around walls, continually doing damage as it can. It will always return eventually, before you start planning anything weird, though. If I was to pick my favourite of the other new boomerangs, it would likely be the frozen one, which leaves behind a trail of killer ice, but that has to be crafted, and by the arcane and petty rules of this top 10, that disqualifies it. So fuck off, frozen boomerang! Oh, you came back. Number 7. BUBBLEGUN. If you are disappointed that you can't tame the water sword's bubbles, now's your big chance. The BUBBLEGUN allows you to place bubbles with precision. They don't do any actual damage, but to be fair, it's a bubble. This one's for the badass who also likes to partay. And yes, somehow the arcane and petty rules that ruled out the frozen boomerang from the top 10 rare weapons don't disqualify something that isn't actually a weapon. Look, bubbles are funny, okay? Number 6. Slave Sword. Is it a sword? Is it a gun? It's a sword gun! A swan. This Zelda-inspired sword is the second of our legendary level weapons in this list. If you didn't know, you can tell it's legendary by the purple outline on the icon. It's procedurally generated again, but everyone fires out a colourful sword bullet that travels a long way, which makes it excellent. The melee part of this sword is very strong, but the bullets, not so much. Number 5. Cell Zapper. Like the Globe Launcher, the Cell Zapper may have been removed from the game, which is a shame because the bullets can hurt several enemies in a line. It's another one whose abilities are random, starting with this weedy example. You can tell it's weedy because of the number 1 in the circle, which means it only travels 1 unit of distance. If you find one with a 2, 3, 4 or even 5 in it, the bullet goes further, changing direction slightly each unit of length. This one is the number 2. And here's a number 4, which goes so far off screen you'll just have to trust me on that one. Number 4. The Flamethrower. A one-trick pony, but an excellent one. The Flamethrower sets everything on fire and lights up the night like nothing else. It's a legendary rarity weapon that, according to the ever-entertaining in-game description, loves the smell of napalm no matter what time of day. So it's a great alternative to boring old melee, although to be fair, the flame goes so far that it could also replace your guns. It barely uses any energy when you fire it, and it does a surprisingly high amount of damage too. Even though it's very rare, I'm scared they're going to nerf this one in an update. Please don't. Number 3. The Gnome Gun. This is a rare and silly gun found in miniature gnome villagers underground, when you destroy their itty-bitty houses. The Gnome Gun really does take you somewhere over the rainbow. Okay, it does very little damage, but it also uses very little energy, and it makes a darling tinkly sound, which means you should use it for everything, including bosses. Especially bosses. Actually don't. Number 2. The Eye Sword. Another legendary sword for the number 2 slot, and apparently a reference to Soul Calibur. Like the Bubble Sword, it mixes melee with a tall shield of bullets, although in this case a cloud of red gas that's guaranteed to hit things at shortish range. This weapon gets to number 2 because it's the coolest looking weapon here. Looks a bit like a smiling red crocodile, and you're probably going to be the only one around with one. Another legendary weapon, the Star Cleaver, could have made the list as well. It only loses out because it feels and looks like a less interesting version of the Eye Sword. The Star Cleaver sends out a huge, planet-shaped blast of patriotic red, white and blue. Patriotic provided you live in a country with those colours on the flag, otherwise it's just a lot of coloured fart. And number 1, the Frying Pan. The Frying Pan is not to be trifled with. And that joke would work if you made trifle in a frying pan. Let's move on. The pan heads the countdown because it's so much fun to use, and it can be quite powerful, although as usual with procedural weapons, this depends on the difficulty of the planet you find it on. It makes a great clang sound when you hit something too, very Vic and Bob. Now, to be fair, this is actually the least rare weapon on the list, but it just about scrapes in because there's only one place you can get them. You'll need to find a dangerous USCM bunker dungeon, and you'll have to work through a lot of storage to find them. Whilst you're at the bunker, you can also stock up at old toilets, space radiators, and egg chairs. Sadly, none of those can be used as weapons. Oh, and for lovers of slapstick, other bizarre melee weapons include a steel chair and a spoon, although since Please Giraffe, you can no longer craft the spoon. Outrageous. Right, that's the all-time top 10 rare weapons in Starbound, old and new. There's a lot more to weapons these days, what with the new secondary attacks, but I reckon that's beyond the scope of this video, so nah. For more details on what you'll be able to find in the new combat update, check out my Starbound Glad Giraffe playlist, with the first information on new monsters, hoverbikes, elevators, boomerangs, and spooky midnight planets. So subscribe to Randomise User for future videos on Starbound, and lots of other early access games as well. Bye bye.